Hello everybody, ciao a tutti, welcome to my channel, welcome or welcome back. My name's Rebecca and I make videos in Italy, videos about Italy, whatever. Anyway, so as the title is going to suggest, I'm going to talk about something what was a little bit of a shock for me. It might also be a shock for you when you arrive to Italy, or you may have noticed this. Right, so the age people leave home in Italy is different than the age people leave home in the UK. Okay, there's many factors why this is the case. So let's do some numbers. So in the UK, on average, a person generally leaves home at around the age of 24 years old, I would say. They're pretty ready to leave home. And in Italy, the number that comes up is they leave home around 30 plus. So it's not uncommon to find somebody at home at 30, at 32, at 33, at 30, in their 30s, okay? In their early 30s, it's not uncommon. The average age I read of a person for people leaving home is around 25 years old, 25, 26 years old. So your mid 20s is the average age around the world. That's what I read. So considered to the average age, we could definitely say that Italians do leave home later than the average person in their 30 or in their 30s. And I would say that British people from the UK, leave home around 20, 24, like I said. But also, I knew a lot of people when growing up that left home a lot earlier. So you can officially leave home in the UK when you are age 16, you can go out and you can live alone. And I had friends that as soon as they left school, they went and they moved to different countries moved to different cities around the world, or they just moved out of their house. So it's definitely something that happens. Sometimes I think that in the UK, people now on reflection, I think that some people rush to move out and they move out quite soon. And I think that moving out can be quite stressful. And if you're not ready for it, it can cause unnecessary stress to your life, especially if you're trying to juggle education and the job and the house. It can be very stressful at a young age. It can be stressful at any age, but at a young age, especially if you're not prepared for it, it can be quite daunting. But it definitely happens. My experience was I left home around 18, 19 years old, but I left home to go to university. So I moved to a completely different city and I lived on campus. And it was good. It was great. I'm not going to say, should I say I loved it? But it was definitely an experience. It was definitely a growing experience. And I grew a lot. I learned to manage money. I learned so much about myself. I learned to mix and mingle with people. I learned lessons that you can't pay for. I learned lessons that you would never get if you lived at home with your parents. I would never have experienced those things. Some things I would rather not experience, but other things, they're invaluable. Okay, so let's get back to the topic. Yeah, so I left at 19 years old, and then obviously I did the uni thing, and then I went back home after uni. Many of my peers also went back home, and then so I went back home around, I think I finished around 22 years old, 23, maybe about 22. I went back home, gathered my thoughts and ideas, and then I launched out again, then moved back to London, and then got my big girl job after university. So my home was always a base, and I knew when I left home at 19 years old, I knew I wasn't permanently leaving home. I knew there was a possibility that I could possibly go back to my house, because obviously that's my base and it's fine. I had that security. But yeah, many other people, many of my other friends and stuff like that, they just went straight on to working in London, or they didn't go back home. All right. So in Italy, I found that many people, they stay at home for university. A lot of people stay at home for university, and they just, do the commute from their house and they go to a university close by. I've noticed that quite a bit. So yeah, so the age difference is quite interesting. And I think when you come and you start to date, especially if you're in your 20s and your 30s, and maybe you've come from the UK and you're at an age where in the UK, you notice that when you were dating in the UK, the guys, they had their apartments, they had their houses, because in the UK it's quite normal. It's quite kind of like something to boast about. It's something like, I have my own car. For men, I mean, I have my own car and I have my own apartment. And for some women, it might sound materialistic, but they they give brownie points to a man, or the man is more appealing if he has his own apartment, if he's has his own car and stuff like that. So it's deemed as very a mature thing to do and a more mature thing to have. So if you were to come from the UK to Italy and you would find that somebody maybe in their 30s that you're dating, the revelation is that they're still at home, it can be quite, it can be a little bit of a shock, because in the UK, it can be quite embarrassing to say, "Oh, I still live at home." I actually remember being a little bit embarrassed when I was dating in the UK, in the UK, telling people, "Oh yeah, I'm back at home," because I boomeranged backwards and forwards quite a bit. I used my house as a base, and then I did a lot of traveling, and I lived in different places. But I used it as a base, and there was a point where I was at home for about a year and a half, and I was dating in Manchester. And when I was telling people like, "Oh, I'm back at I live with my mom," sometimes it was frowned upon. I can 100% say it was frowned upon. And at this time, I was probably like 26, 27 years old. But every guy I dated at the time, they lived alone or they had their own place or whatever. It was seldom I dated anybody that lived with their parents. It's just not a thing. And if they did, it's deemed as quite embarrassing. But here in Italy, you'll find that the guys, they still live at home. And there are some reasons why, and it definitely differs from north to south. Definitely in the south, the economy and the job situation is quite interesting down there. The lack of jobs maybe discourages young people to go out and launch out and live alone. So that's one thing that can happen. But up in the north, there's a little bit more money, there's a little bit of opportunities. And I'm only going to talk for what I see in the north and some of the guys that I dated in the past, and also the people that are around me, my boyfriends, friends, etc. I find that these are all working guys in this age bracket that I discussed, and they are all at home and they work. Okay, they work full-time jobs. They have a decent enough income coming in, but they have no kind of like, what's the word? That bounce, or no type of motivation to want to leave home, even though they have a nice income coming in. They prefer to stay at home. Some of them stay at home, they share a room with their brother or whatever. It's deemed as okay for them. There's no rush. And for somebody from the UK or from a different country, it might be like, "Oh, okay, it's quite interesting," because as I said before, we are more like, "Okay, I'm 18 years old, let me go, let me launch out alone by myself." So yeah, it can be a little bit of a shock, especially when the person is able-bodied and they're employed and life is okay, and they still choose to live at home. But there's this thing about people say about the mummy's boys, and they like to stay at home and stuff like that. So maybe it could be a little bit of that. And also, when I posted this on this topic on TikTok, somebody said to me, "But why should we leave home if food is cooked and this and this has happened, and the routine is nice at home? It's like, what's the rush for me to leave home?" But I think in the UK it's a little bit different. I think some people rush to leave home, but on the other hand, I do believe that you gain a lot of experience and you build character when you live outside. You learn to manage money, you learn different life skills. And I noticed some of the guys that I met, friends or dated in the UK, the Italian guys that went over to live in the UK, they seemed a little bit different. They had a different type of, they just seemed different. They seemed more more motivated, and I could link that to the fact that they maybe lived alone, or they had to kind of like think for themselves and they became more independent by themselves, as opposed to maybe the 30-year-olds that I met in Italy that live with their parents. I don't know. I think it gives you a different level of maturity living at home. And also when dating, it can come across a little bit Giovanni, a little bit young. For example, if you're from the UK and you're a woman in your hair, you've come here and you're dating, and the man is rushing home to have dinner with his mom. It's like, oh, I need to get home. And sometimes you'll find it's quite important for them to get home at 8 o'clock to have dinner with their parents. Their mum cooks for them. Their mum might iron their shirt for them. Their mum might still do this and still do that for them. It's just, it's quite interesting. And as I said, it might come as a shock to you, but it will just take you some time to adjust. And it's just to know that it's a different culture. They do things just a little bit different here. And it's just a matter of knowing about it and adapting to it. I ran out of storage on my phone. Anyway, I think I was probably ranting a little bit before anyway. So let me stay on topic now. So I forgot where I left off, but let's start on a new topic. So there's some questions that I ask and I wonder, like, where do you, when dating, is where do you take your girlfriend when you know you have a girlfriend? Where do you take, how does it generally work when dating? I know that, you know, some of my boyfriend's friends, for example, they're like, oh, they wait for their parents to leave the house, or they wait for to bring the girl back to the house, or they wait for to go on holiday, or they, you know, meet in hotels and have, you know, their relationships in hotels and stuff like that. So yeah, but again, that can come across, if you're maybe from the UK, as something quite young, quite jovial, because that's probably what you do when you're in your teens and you're dating somebody. So it might be like, ooh, but I'm warning you, I'm giving you advance notice. So yeah, like I said before, we in the UK, we are lucky enough to have benefit system where if anything does go wrong with your job, you have housing benefits, or you have some type of benefits that can help you. There's kind of like a little cushion there to help. Here, I'm not really sure 100% how the benefit system works, but I do know at 16 years old, for example, a long time ago, back in the day, I don't know if that still applies now, but I know if you were 16 years old and you wanted to maybe get a council house, like a government funded house in the UK, and you were a certain age, and you had certain requirements, you could possibly get a house and help towards payment for the house and stuff like that. So in the UK, there's definitely that advantage. I know a lot of things have changed now under the new government, where they've cut back on giving benefits and stuff like that. But Italy, for the most part, I think that the benefit system is really different here, and it's a lot harder to attain maybe these benefits. And I think it's kind of like what you put in, you kind of get out. So a lot of people are scared to launch out by themselves, because if they lose their job, if this happens, if that happens, they have no bounce, they have no help to help them with, you know, with their rent basically, and nobody wants that. So I think that gives some people a little bit of a paralysis. It scares them a little bit. Yeah. I noticed here that a lot of people decide to move out when they are stable, so when they finish their education. And also the reason why Italians generally move out later as well, they finish education, they finish university a little bit later than we do in the UK. We finish around 23, 22. I think I finished about 22 years old, and they might finish 20, maybe a year or two later for some courses. So they might finish education a little bit later as well. So then it has an effect on when they leave home. Then there's no benefit system. And then the economy. And then the culture of staying at home anyway. And then some of them prefer to, when they meet their partner, then they prefer to move in with their partner and have a good life with their partner once they meet their partner. That can be a good thing, and that can be an interesting thing at the same time, because Sometimes I believe if a person hasn't had any experience outside of their parents' house, for example, and their parents have always cooked and they've always cleaned for them, then they start to date somebody and meet somebody and they start to date for a little while. They might date for a year or whatever. And then they start to date for a year. Then they move in with that person. Sometimes the man, for example, let's just say the man might expect the woman to continue on where the mama left off, if you understand what I mean. And then that can sometimes cause some conflict or some type of arguments or something like that. And especially if the person maybe doesn't know how to manage money, or they don't know how to manage this because they've never lived alone. That can cause a little bit of problems. This is not to say if you live at home, you don't handle your own money, or you don't handle this, or you don't handle that, because some people do. I'm just talking about worst case scenario. So it can cause some problems along the way when you just move in with somebody. Maybe you've never lived alone, and maybe you don't cook for yourself, really don't wash your own clothes. It can cause some problems. I would always advise anybody to live alone, or to experience life alone, or to leave their parents' nest at a certain age. That's what I would always advise somebody to do. As when you get to maybe like 25 years old, launch out, be audacious, move to a different country, move to a different city. I see lots of Italian people living in the UK, and they get on with it. They get on with their life there, and that's it. They live alone. They have in their own apartment. Some of them said to me, yeah, if I was in Italy, I would probably still be at my parents' house. But I'm happy that I've got this experience living alone. And it can be a nice experience, but I'm not here to say that I believe that living alone is better than not living alone. It's just kind of simply up to you and the conditions that you live in and whatever you have going on in your life, okay? Money, whatever. But as I said before, there are some able-bodied people that just prefer to live at home, and they just rather leave their parents' house when they find their partner, whenever that is. That could be when they're 33 years old. It just depends. But the good thing is, as some Italians do leave home, they seem to have a lot of savings saved up, which is good. They seem to have their jobs, they have their career, they're ready. Basically, they're really, really ready. As opposed to sometimes in the UK, when I find people leave home early, they're not equipped with all the necessary equipment and, money and everything like that. So it's kind of like a slog. You're having to work full time, do this, pay for this, pay for that, pay for this, pay for this, pay for that, pay for that. And sometimes, that can have its toll on a person's health, mental health, and everything else. So, yeah, just to warn you ladies in advance, it could possibly happen. You can meet this beautiful man, and then he says to you, I live at home. And it's okay, guys. Okay, guys, well, I think that's it for this video. I try to write notes and I try to follow the notes, but you know what? It's not the way. Maybe it's the Aquarius in me. I like to go off and do different things. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, because I would like for us to be friends. All right, ciao for now. Bye.